Well, hey there, I'm Dr. Tom Ulrich, and I like to talk about leadership in engineering. Hey, in my last video, I talked about how culture exists in layers, and the top layers influence the layers below. And I think everything I said was technically correct, but what I realize is, I don't think I made it relatable. I think it's unlikely you left that video saying, "Oh, I really relate to that." It's just more of like a bunch of facts. So the goal of this video is to try to make that a little more relatable. So let me give you an example of layered culture. So I live in America, and one of the American values is individual freedom. And notice, if someone comes to you and says, "Well, I think we should do what the king says, and what you want to do doesn't matter," one thing you know for sure, they're not American. That's just un-American. That's not how we think. We like freedom. Now, let's think about an engineering organization in New York and an engineering organization in California. Both American, both are steeped in this idea of individual freedom. Being someone who lives in Southern California, I haven't worn a tie to work in 20 years. I don't wear ties. Nobody at any place I've worked in the last 20 years wears a tie. You go to the East Coast, you'll find it's a different situation. People wear ties. You see, when it gets time to get dressed in the morning, the way I interpret that, this idea of freedom, I don't have to wear a tie, and all my coworkers agree. But you go to New York, and you are at a company where we wear ties and suits, you'll discover some additional detail. Yes, we do ascribe to personal freedom, but no. We wear suits. You see how that is? So the value of freedom does transmit. And to be sure, New Yorkers are all about personal freedom. In that one instance, they interpret it different than here. And I think what they would say is something like, that's insignificant. That's a different issue. And, there would be a very logical explanation. Now, when I was at Parker Hannifin, I was in a software team. And as you probably figured out, I'm kind of a ridiculous guy, the whole leadership and engineering. Yeah, I'm meaning that to be ridiculous. I'm a ridiculous guy, and so that's going to come out. So it came time for me to write a software standard, and I said, well, this is, I was talking about the comments we need to put at the top of the file, and I thought it would be a good idea to be kind of consistent, have a copyright, have a, author's name, and so on. And I wanted to make it memorable because I knew to this point, that group, it was the wild, wild west. Nobody put comments. Certainly nobody, standardized the comments. And so I wanted to make some things memorable. And so there was a line there where I had an example of the comment where I said, author. And then in my example, I put Prairie Dog Dave Rumney. And my buddy Dave Rumney worked there, and I don't know where the prairie dog came from. I mean, it came from the same place as leadership and engineering. At any rate, so I just put in there, Prairie Dog Dave Rumney. And it was really interesting, presenting that at a higher level to other engineering managers. And I mean, there was outrage. There were people who were incensed that I had put humor in a document. I mean, judging from the way that people reacted, you would have thought what I said was, guys, gals, I think we should do genocide. I mean, the reaction was about the same because at Parker, there was and still is, I think, a deeply held value that, humor has no place in the workplace. And I was in this little group where we were trying to carve out our own culture, and I'm a big fan of humor, and that was a case where the layered suffocated, the top layer gave all this feedback. The feedback was in the form of, we don't do that here. So there's two parts of that. We. See what it did? We just drew a circle around who's in and who's out. It became an identity issue. So how does culture communicate through the layers? It's through comments that explain who we are. Now, the other part is we don't do that. Do you catch kind of the moral sort of thing? Like, oh, yeah, the disgust is just dripping. We don't do that. We don't use humor. That has the disgust. See, and that's an example of a higher level in an an engineering organization communicating to this upstart little organization that was pulled together from different divisions, very clearly and unambiguously communicating their culture downward. There isn't going to be Prairie Dog Dave Rumney in our documents. Now, the truth is I ended up sneaking it through. I think it might even still be there to this day, much to people's dismay. But there was an awful lot of things like that where, my expressions of ridiculousness just kept getting met. Now, how did that turn out? Well, it resolved itself. I don't work at Parker anymore. Now, it was my choice to leave. But the truth of the matter is that probably, there was a boiling point coming. So anyway, that's an example of how culture communicates down through the ranks. And, it can happen company-wide. At one place I worked at, a common thing was we have fun at work. And I think in general, that company that's accurate. But there was a time when I took everybody in my team and I went and I bought the half-inch sprinkler pipe from Home Depot, and those small marshmallows, the little teeny ones, those fit perfectly in a half-inch pipe. And so what I did is I cut them up in a whole bunch of pieces and got some connectors, the elbows and the T's and all that. I just got hundreds of these things, and I got bags and bags of marshmallows, and I organized this enormous marshmallow fight out in the parking lot. So it's in the parking lot. It's fine. There is no problem here. It's biodegradable. Birds and whatnot can eat marshmallows. It's not going to be like I'm pouring motor oil in the creek or something. But, there was a lot of pushback on that. There was a lot of, how dare you? And, thought you said we value fun. Well, not that kind of fun. So, we're all for fun as long as it's, not fun. But at any rate, so there's a value, there's a case where, again, I got some very specific feedback that extinguished the behavior. By the way, anybody who's there, if you ask them what was their favorite day in all their time at that company, I think there's probably 70% of them will say, oh, that marshmallow gunfight was the best. But at any rate, so culture does communicate downward. So, any rate, so if you're at a toxic organization, where it's truly just messed up, all these shame is the norm, and no smiling, and drive people to burnout. What happens is if you say, okay, I'm going to be a different kind of manager. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to laugh every now and then at work. I'm going to tell jokes. I am going to treat people with respect. What you'll get is comments. You need to be tougher on your employees. You need to show your employees that, we take work seriously. And what'll happen is you'll be in this organization that is colossally toxic, and all the feedback that you get will be framed as if you're the one doing something morally reprehensible. Now, this can be an organization that is unprincipled, dishonest, underpays their people, abuses their employees, just classic toxic. The boss screams, all the time, just always screaming. And yet, the feedback you'll get will be in the form of identity. We don't do that here. And fake morals. That's unacceptable. We don't do that. How dare you do that? So anyway, so that's what I'm talking about. There are mechanisms, and it's through just interactions that's how culture is communicated up and down layers. Likewise, when someone comes into an organization, it's communicated. So, you may have a coding standard that says you're going to do this, this, and this. New person starts, they're trying to figure out what the rules are. Everybody kind of knows no organization accurately reflects what they actually believe. And so, and you may not even think of it that way. You're just trying to think of like, how do we do this here, right? And so, the new engineer asks the seasoned engineer, well, how do we, I see this coding standard, how do we do it? And the seasoned engineer says, yeah, don't worry about that. We don't do that. See, now at that point, the culture was transmitted. The culture was not transmitted by the document. Nobody cares what we say we do. That's what the document does. They're interested in what we actually do. And so culture's communicated, whether it's vertically or horizontally, it's communicated by those little interactions. A new person comes in the group. Everything the person who's already there says will be taken as authoritative, will be taken as representative of the culture. And that's why if you have a 10-person group and you decide that they all have to go and you get rid of 5, bring in 5 more, the first week, most of the culture will be communicated through those uncontrollable, incidental interactions. And then you'll change the other 5 3 weeks later, and you'll discover the culture persists because the new person learned them quickly and is now passing on a new person, and you change all the people and nothing changed in the culture. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful. I'm Dr. Tom Ulrich. I'm the Engineering Leadership Guy. Hey, thanks for listening. Do you mind giving me a like? Maybe you can subscribe. If you'd like to see more videos on YouTube, you can search on Dr. Tom Ulrich, and I've got my website, tomulrichconsulting.com. At any rate, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.